Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of PD and P-Dubs Unscripted. We're joined here by P-Dubs is back with us here.
I know it's been a long time. I'm starting to feel like a guest host or something. I don't know.
You're not just a guest host. You've still been on here the second most of anybody.
Okay.
But we also have a recurring guest, this time in person, but we got Pastor Dave Ficken with us.
Am I back for the third time now?
Is it the
third time?
I don't know. It's at least second time.
Well,
because I know you did a lot of gathering places. That's where you've helped out a lot.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yep.
But now we have you in person. Now that you moved back to the area, you're up from Nashville, Tennessee. You know, a lot of people are saying, why you leave in Nashville to come to Chicago?
I know. Everybody that we talked to at the grocery store, we're checking out, getting our groceries. And we tell them, yeah, we just moved here from Nashville. And they kind of look like,
huh?
You're going the wrong way. Like, and everybody tells me they have somebody who just bought a house or just moved to Nashville. Like, everybody's got a cousin. Everybody's got a
one
sibling.
Of those people buy your guys' house down in Nashville?
I actually, no. When they were kind of close to our neighborhood, and then they got to move even closer to some family. So
nice.
It was really sweet.
Sweet.
Yeah, I have family down about an hour south of Nashville. Little town called Chapel Hill, Tennessee.
Sure, yeah.
Yep. So, been down that way a few times in my younger days. Haven't been down there in a while, but...
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful country down there.
Yeah, I think the last time I was in Nashville was when I stayed at your place, driving down for Busman's wedding and spent the night at your place.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
And we just hung out, I think watched some Seinfeld.
Oh, man.
Oh, I gotta love Seinfeld.
Oh.
I actually saw an episode last night that I never saw before. And
Which one?
So it's the one, it starts out with George, Jerry, Elaine, and George's girlfriend at a wedding for Susan Mishki in India.
That's the one in India.
And it goes backwards.
Yes.
The whole show goes backwards. I'm like, how have I never seen this before? I mean, come on.
I know I've seen it, but I just don't remember much about it.
And then there's this thing where this guy named FDR, that Kramer is a buddy, and he threw a snowball at him, and then he pegs him in the face up against a wall. It's just, all the randomness is crazy.
So we're just going to talk Seinfeld today, right?
It could be, yeah.
Now, you might think I'm making this up, but I was actually thinking about telling a Seinfeld story today on my drive over here.
Okay, go for it.
So I just finished having lunch, and part of my lunch was eating some pretzels. And of course, anytime you have pretzels, and I'm starting to think like, oh man, I hope I'm able to articulate clearly, and like your teeth kind of get a little gummed up with pretzels and stuff. And I was thinking, I'm going to get thirsty, so I better bring some water with me. And then, of course, I'm just thinking, these pretzels are making me thirsty.
I love how George just really gets into it. He looks almost deranged. These pretzels are making me thirsty. And they're like, that's overdone. What?
Such a great show.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to a lot, we do make a lot of Seinfeld references on here.
I love Kramer.
Oh, how can you not?
Oh,
I mean,
man.
has there ever been a character in TV history quite like Kramer? I mean, like, it's groundbreaking.
So. I think you're right. It totally is.
Well, like, you bust out the fancy boy robe today, this weekend.
Yeah, I did. I brought out the fancy boy robe, and Pastor Donald always takes notice of my robe with lace, on the sleeves and on the bottom. Fancy boy, and
I do love that episode.
I walk a little lighter in my shoes when I get there.
We're going off the rails.
Oh, man.
It's bad enough when we go off the rails. Now we're
bringing Dave in. Oh boy, we've lost all credibility with us.
Third time's a charm. Here we go.
Here we go. But yeah, the real reason why we do have Dave in is to talk about his new position, what he's doing in Chicago with LINC Chicago. So if you want to give a little background, Dave, about your new role and a little background, we can kind of go from there.
Yeah. So LINC exists because our heart is that every city that LINC is in, we want to see every person in that city hear the gospel, experience the gospel in a tangible way from someone they know in a way they can understand. And in a diverse city like Chicago, that means that it takes all of us living a life where the love of Jesus just shines out of who we are, how we serve, how we love our neighbor. And because you got people in your life that are not in my life that I don't have any kind of rapport with. And that exists all over the city, not to mention all the different languages and nationalities that exist around Chicago. It just requires such a diverse witness of the love of Christ. And
Yeah, no one person, as you said before, can span all of that diversity, right? Like, so it takes a group of people who are a representation of that diversity to reach, people in their language or just and I don't mean like word language, but like, dialect, context.
Because I think you shared that at our circuit meeting when you presented about like, there's different areas depending on different ethnicities or whatever that other people are going to be better able to reach because they kind of had that credibility already going into it.
And doesn't every Christian need to be encouraged? Like, hey, you don't have to, nor can you be everything to every person.
Right.
Like, but maybe God has put people in your life that specifically you have a unique opportunity to serve them, love them, whether it's your proximity, you speak the same language, you work together, you live in the same neighborhood, whatever it may be. And it doesn't have to be as intimidating as what we often make it seem.
Out to be.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Right, because I know we did, and I know we've talked about the whole like joining Jesus on his mission, the Greg Finke stuff, or like our concept with the one.
With the one,
that's like, hey, who's that person in your life that doesn't know Jesus?
Yeah, I thought of those two things when he was, describing LINC, and I didn't mean to jump in on you there, but like, it just made me think of, what we've been kind of presenting here at Emmanuel, and that's why I love how it just kind of dovetails, because it really does boil down to personal relationships or, group of people reaching out to a community, that kind of thing.
Yep. And I just gotta celebrate you guys for a second. I got to come here and preach about 2 months ago, and I heard people talking about their one. I heard people sharing a name or two.
Wow.
Look at this. How about this, right? Like, I heard it in the prayers during the service. It's on people's minds around here, and that's a powerful, powerful thing.
Thank you for sharing that, man.
Yeah, well, thanks for your leadership. I mean, it really requires partnership. Like that's one of the things about LINC that I love is it's a huge vision. We want every person to hear the gospel from someone they know in a way they can understand. That demands that we are all a part of that. It can't take just one church, one organization, one leader, one even denomination. It's every Christian working together. And LINC's role in that, I think somewhere along the way, LINC must have been asking the question, if we're going to see every single one of those people in our cities interact with the gospel, how are we going to do that? What's our strategy? And the way that LINC presses into that, and what we do is we train leaders who already have a dream on their heart to start a church, a ministry, a nonprofit, a for-profit business, that they want to use that to make an impact for the sake of the gospel in their community. And we encourage them, we'll come alongside you, we'll train you, we'll make sure you never walk alone. And then we want you to stay where you are. We're not going to send you overseas.
Right.
Although the world needs that.
Yep.
And interestingly enough, there are more people getting sent into the United States than the United States is sending out now. The United States is now the third largest mission field in the world. And what's really fascinating is because these leaders already have influence, they already have relationships in their community. Wherever they're starting their nonprofit, their business, they already have connections. And we see God using that in powerful ways that now with some legs underneath the dream that God's put on their heart through some planning, some clarity, the process that LINC takes people through, those dreams not only start to become a reality, but our hope and prayer is that these lead to very deep roots.
Yeah.
Because the kinds of things we're talking about are very transformational, but they take time. I mean, I was in a meeting this morning, and we were talking about gang violence. Chicago has twice as much gun violence than LA and New York combined.
I remember you sharing that we have
Yeah.
twice as much as those two, which is like those are the two biggest. Yeah, we're the third, but when you're combining the two biggest, we still have twice as much in Chicago.
Right? That's staggering, isn't
It
it?
is. It's mind blowing, actually. Yeah.
And when you think about it, we started just kind of breaking down how does that happen. And what's interesting is gangs in Chicago are actually growing rapidly, which in a very weird way, it got me thinking, I wonder what the church can learn from that. What is it that gangs are doing that's causing people to want to be a part of them? And so we were talking through this a little bit, and it really starts. We were recently talking with one of our leaders who works in neighborhoods deeply affected by gangs, and it really just starts off as simply as gang members coming to a young, usually somewhat lonely or isolated, usually male, and saying, "Hey, if you'll just stay on the street corner, we'll pay you money." Mm-hmm. And what young kid
Going to turn down money.
Right.
exactly
For something who's doing something pretty simple, just standing there.
right? Absolutely. And maybe they have the task of like, "Hey, if somebody's coming, yell out or something like that. Be a watch out for us." And it starts there. Something as innocent as that, and really, really, it starts out there. But then that person over time finds more and more belonging in that community, and before they know it, they're involved in gang activity. Even if that wasn't it's not like somebody came up to them and said, "Hey, will you sign this contract to sign up to be a part of this community for the next 5 years?" Like, nope, they're just like brought into community out of their desire to belong. And how do they know what that life looks like? They don't sit down in a classroom
Right.
and are taught what it is. They just watch.
Yeah.
They watch other people in that community, and they start doing the same things that those people are doing. And eventually they start looking up to those people, and they join in on that activity. And I just think about oftentimes the church can so easily complicate what it looks like to follow Jesus. In reality, we have an opportunity just to imitate one another and see what faith looks like, not just on Sunday, but outside of Sunday. And I think if we see that happen more through our churches, through the LINC leaders who are starting nonprofits and businesses and stuff like that, people are going to start to see how they activate their faith by what they see in other Christians.
And I think that is the big part, is that community.
Yep.
You know, you see a lot of churches kind of with the tagline or slogan, "You belong here." And that idea of showing that community, and, you know, God created us to be in community. He said it's not good for man to be alone at the very beginning of creation.
Yeah, everything you described in the neighborhood and the gang activity, a young person can feel, oh, they know me. You know, I'm known, and I've got backing.
Yeah, I'm cared for here.
I'm cared for,
Yeah.
and I now am a part of something rather than being isolated, like you said, left to your own devices. And you're right, Donald, that every human being has those needs. And
Well, you look at even like a sports team. Look at how there's that unity where
Yep.
the teams just gel, and they have that community, and they find that sense of belonging where they all connect to each other.
right.
We were sharing the story of one of the leaders that's connected to LINC. And when he was younger, he was growing up in another city, got involved in a gang in that city. And after being in that gang for a while, his connections were so strong, but he realized this wasn't what he wanted for his life. And so he started to look to faith to find peace, to find like literally peace. His life was a war. And so he went to churches, and you know how every church has like that connect card, like, hey, let us know you're here. And his testimony is it was so hard to get out of the gangs, not just because they wanted to keep him in it, but because he looked for belonging even in churches and still found more protection from the parents of other gang members.
Wow.
So it would take, and he shares this in his story, that it would take, usually, if a church ever called after he filled out one of the Connect cards, I mean, he's earnestly looking for faith community. And maybe a church would call 2 or 3 weeks later to say, welcome, we're glad you attended a few weeks ago. If he was looking for a place to live, looking for safety, he realized that the church could not respond quick enough. And he would text the parents of other gang members, and within a couple of days, there'd be 10 houses opened up for him.
Wow.
So you just think about, like, for somebody coming from that story, what's the incentive of being a part of the church? You know, what the responsiveness. And I think it's just something to say, like, we can reach people in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm seeing is the church partnered with something like LINC, where there are leaders who can connect with communities that maybe I don't have influence or you don't have influence there. We haven't earned the trust of that community. We can empower and walk alongside of and encourage leaders who do have trust there, who do have connections in that community.
Well, and what you described promotes loyalty, because for the person who is in need, and in a couple of days he has 10 options of which to find one of the most core things of shelter in one's life, then there's an allegiance.
Absolutely.
And says, I will do anything for these people because they help me in my greatest time of need. And so there you go. There's the power of the community, just used, unfortunately, in a bad way. You know, like they're calling on me to do this job or whatever it is they want them to do that could be crime related. They remember how they were taken in and cared for. And so that's really an amazing thing. And I wonder, I keep thinking as you share these stories, does affluence have a negative impact on churches? Like, you know, in terms of, you know, everybody's got stuff going on and people come into the church and then, you know, they're not in this desperate need as maybe some of these examples that you've shared with us. But there's a need of some kind, but yet people get involved in the affluence of their life. Or I got so many activities, or I got this, and it kind of pulls them away from the seeing the person's need for what it is and reaching quickly. You know what I mean? I wonder if that enters into what the church struggles with in that regard.
It's interesting. You know, the last 3 months as I've stepped into this role as the LINC Chicago city director, I've just done a lot of listening. I've been meeting with leaders in the city, around the city, in the suburbs, and just listening. Like, every church and every Christian has pain points. There are things that we're all struggling with. Everybody's looking for momentum in one way or another. And sometimes, you know, whether it's affluence, whether it's your capacity for time, your travel schedule, if your work demands that you're out of town, like
demands on your life. Yeah,
absolutely. Right. Demands on your life. Like, we all have something different to contribute. I'm seeing that. And sometimes if we're too comfortable, I think we either become numb to how big the challenge really is and think either I can't do anything about that. An entire city, like,
right,
I can't do this. There's millions and millions of people. Like, I'm not going to make a dent. We have to fight that off, you know. But also thinking, like, you know, if you're too comfortable, sometimes we don't recognize our own need for a savior. Like,
right,
what do we really need Jesus for if I can just depend on myself or my affluence or my own ability to provide for myself?
Or the other people in my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, so yeah, that idea of what do you need and, like, what is that common theme you're hearing that people are looking for that they need?
I think I think it's holistic. I really do think it is, and I think every part of the kingdom of God needs to be asking the question, what is our role to contribute? And I think and I think the second question is, what do we need to receive from somebody else? Because everybody has something to give and offer, and everybody needs something that only the body of Christ can provide. I mean, we have to be supporting each other. I think in some ways, it's challenging to think through what that looks like for me, and I think everybody wrestles with that. But what is it you would bring to the table that you could offer so that the kingdom can flourish? And what is it you need to hear or receive from somebody else so that you can flourish where you are? All of us are lacking something and wishing there was momentum or growth or new life in one area of our lives, or our organizations, our business, our churches, our marriages, our parenting, our relationships. I mean, you name it. I think we're all looking for momentum in that, which means the body of Christ is like primed to meet that need because we lack nothing in Christ. Right. But then also, like, God has given you something to use for the sake of the kingdom. And whether that's your relationships, whether that is your financial gifts, maybe it's your time. I'm recognizing in Chicago, ain't nobody got time.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, we are a couple blocks from the train station right now. And the amount of time spent in a car or on a train commuting, moving here.
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes not moving, but still in your car.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's
Did you know Chicago's the third most congested city in the world?
I can believe it. I think probably Atlanta might be the first.
It could be.
Yeah, I think
That's
Atlanta's
pretty bad.
But isn't Nashville pretty bad too for congestion?
I mean,
not to compare.
there are parts that have congestion, yeah, and like you would like to avoid certain commutes, but I mean here also in Nashville, like everybody's coming from all over the city. Here, everybody's coming mostly from the west to the east.
Yeah,
in this one direction every day.
it's got to be L.A.
Yeah, I was gonna say
LA,
LA,
yeah, I don't know.
California's
Yeah.
gotta be pretty bad.
Yeah.
I would think there'd be some international cities that are.
Oh,
Have you ever
true.
tried
Yeah.
driving through some international cities?
Well, I mean, I think of Cambodia, but you could probably Phnom Penh was pretty crazy.
Holy cow! Not a traffic light in the whole town.
Or probably that one time you were in India with Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
The traffic, and I did go to India when I was in college, and that was for the first 5 minutes driving around that city. I thought we were going to get in a car accident every 30 seconds. Every square inch of anything paved or even not paved between the buildings on this side and the buildings on this side, it's fair game.
Yeah.
It does not matter which direction you're going.
Exactly. That's how Cambodia was.
Yeah.
You got all these little tuk-tuks, like a little guy on a motorcycle with you in a carriage.
Well, I'm saying rickshaw like Seinfeld.
Rickshaw, yeah.
There you go.
So you got another Seinfeld
There you
reference
go.
in here.
I was sitting in the back of the rickshaw, and I had my, I'm videoing, and I had my hand out, and the rickshaw driver said, "You probably want to make sure your hand is inside, because you see how close people get with motorized scooters. They'll grab it right out of your hand and go, and there ain't no way I can get them."
Well, even how they weave in and out.
Yes.
Like I was like, dude, how do you got enough room to cut across over like that? I'd be.
It reminds me of I love birds. So like the murmuration of starlings, how they just go all over the place, but they're all together and they move. I'm like, that's the cities of Cambodia, the streets of Cambodia. It's
That makes sense.
I mean, I just sit there and I'm like we're going to get in an accident. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And there's a flow. I don't understand, but there is.
There is. There is.
And I thought driving in London was rough, just going the other side of the road and getting used to roundabouts and things like that. But yeah, Cambodia, crazy.
It's a different game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, and as we were talking, we're talking about the momentum and that leadership. I was thinking of a video that I know I showed when I first came to Emmanuel, and I think you probably would have saw it, son, that the lessons from the dancing guy.
Oh yeah, I love that. Just takes one guy to start a movement.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You get your one follower, and then then everybody's like, oh, I want to be a part of that. I don't want to be left out on the outside of this.
No joke. Like everyone who's listening to this, you should YouTube was the dancing guy or dancing guy movement.
Like first follower leadership lessons from dancing guy or crazy dancing guy leadership. There's a few different versions. It's all the same clip. And then I was like, I would see if I don't know if I don't think I can embed it into the YouTube video. I'll probably get dinged and kicked off YouTube.
Everybody Google it. Everybody Google it.
Yeah.
And what it reminds us is that it only takes one person to go first.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I just, there are some of us who are naturally wired to go first. Early adopters, pioneers, entrepreneurs, people who have this, like if you have a dream on your heart, you just need to start asking some questions, both of God and of other friends around you. Just say like, do you sense this is a need too? Do you know anybody else who's doing this? Who can I go shadow or where can I go to learn about this? And if you're in the Chicagoland area, connect with us at LINC. We'd love to hear your dream. We'd love to hear what God's been putting on your heart, because it's so easy for us to just think, and I'm like so guilty of this. Every time I have an idea, to think, nobody really needs that.
Yep.
What kind of impact can that make? I'm sure somebody else is already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody else will take care of it. I don't need to spend my time doing that.
100%. Mm-hmm. And you know what? The other person who might have a similar idea, they're probably thinking the same thing.
Yep.
And this world needs Christians to act out of courage and love for their neighbor, and to not assume that somebody else is doing it.
Right. And as you were describing earlier, that process of, practically anybody can have an idea, and maybe many people have many ideas, particularly, in how they can grow the kingdom of God. But it's that what you guys provide, that bridge between idea creation and actually implementing, that answers and supports and carries the person to take dream to reality. And it requires a lot of work, but none of us could do it alone for whatever the idea is. Mm-hmm. Let's take our gathering place idea. Mm-hmm. We couldn't have done that alone. Right. Just you and I. So it just took a lot of talking and planning, and we found a place, and that place was willing to have us at no charge, and it just started coming together, and I see LINC being that like, hey, you got this. Now think about this, and we're here to help you into the next step. Is that right? Yeah,
totally. So when we get connected with leaders who have that dream on their heart, our first promise to them is you'll never walk alone.
That's huge.
Whenever you start something, usually it doesn't go the way you thought it would, right? I have never met somebody who built a plan to start something and it went exactly according to plan.
Yeah.
The plan always needs to adapt. It always needs to change. Well, when we get that initial bit of feedback that says, this didn't go the way I hoped it would, it feels like failure. Yeah. And oftentimes failure becomes fatal. It's like, that didn't work. Must have been a bad idea.
Yep.
No. It doesn't have to be a bad idea. Maybe there's just something that needs tweaking. Or maybe you need to invite somebody else in to be a part of it. And so when somebody goes through LINC's training, we do this kind of training so that they can, 1, start small, 2, stay long, be in your community a long time, and 3, build deep.
Build deep.
We need transformational type of stuff. And it doesn't have to start being deeply transformational. It just needs to start with a small idea. A small idea. It could be something with a starting, maybe you want to start a daycare or something like that. That's a lot. That's going to require a lot of capital. You're going to need to have a building. You're going to have a space. You're going to need teachers. You're going to need certifications. You're going to need all those kinds of things. Maybe it doesn't have to start there. What is the good pilot, the good test, the good thing that can get you started, where you can start to learn from your mistakes, from your failures in ways that won't be fatal? It's absolutely essential.
And I think there's so many niches that are out there for people to, I find that out here, like Carl Fay, Pastor of Prince of Peace, has groups of people come together, nonprofits, and they get together quarterly. And I've been to a couple, and I just am like amazed at, how did you think of that there was a need for this?
Yeah, I would have never thought of some of those different things.
Yeah.
And people, it's like, how do you think? I'm like, maybe I'm just not creative enough.
I know.
But even like, as you're saying, that working through, like, okay, this mistake did kind of fail, but it's like, okay, how can I change and adapt and kind of grow from this and not let that be the barrier stopping me from going through, but how can I work through this and fine-tune things working through? Like, you're talking about like Gathering Place, how that had different iterations.
I think we used that approach, didn't we?
Right.
Like, because we had an idea, but it sure changed.
Well, even the podcast, like you look at how this started, like we kicked it around for years. Then we're like, okay, what is it going to be? Okay, sounds okay down here, but how can we make it better? And I was telling Dave, we had a member donate for the carpet in here, then all the soundproofing, all those little things that came together to fine tune it to what it is now, which I think is a pretty solid product.
Yeah, at any point in time, we could have gotten discouraged and said, this just isn't working. Or even like with the Gathering Place, when COVID came, it knocked us out of our primary place, and we pivoted with everybody else and did it online in our homes.
Right.
And suddenly that became like Gathering Place 2.0.
Which then was cool, because then we were able to get like Dave on there, even though he was in Nashville at the time.
Yep.
I know we've had Matt, who was in New York, or Jake in New York, or Peter down in St. Louis. So we've been able to get remote guests even.
Right.
Which if we were in person for Gathering Place, we wouldn't have been able to, which then highlights other people in the ministries they're doing and gets another voice, because people might get sick of hearing you and I just ramble on.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, that's why we really brought you on, Dave. People got sick of hearing the two of us.
That's why I had to go away for a while, because he's boring.
Well, to everyone listening, you're welcome.
Nice.
It's interesting, when I think about the challenges of leadership, whether you're pastoring a church, or you're leading in your business, your 9-to-5 job, you're leading in your community, being a parent, wherever you have influence, you are a leader there. And I think what is most helpful, both in the work that I'm doing with LINC and in my previous work, was recognizing the importance of having an outside voice speak into and ask questions of what's happening in your world. I remember when we were in seminary, I worked at Starbucks, and in seminary you spend a lot of time wrestling through very deep theological questions and those kinds of things, stuff that doesn't just come up all the time necessarily. Yeah. And then I go to Starbucks, and I would be asked questions that were the types of questions that I remember answering way back when I was going through confirmation. And it was like some of the core fundamental beliefs at the center of my faith. Yeah. But it had been years since I had wrestled through those things. And I'd kind of, taken for granted or gotten accustomed to it. And it wasn't until I had friends around me asking me some of those questions that it gave me a whole lot of clarity about some things. Same thing is true. I don't know if you guys experienced this or anybody that's listening, man, when your weekday is always coming, in pastor's world, Sunday's always coming, right? Mm-hmm. And we're recording this on Holy Week. So there's like 5 Sundays this week, I think. like there's Sunday's always coming, or for, somebody who's commuting into the city and working 9 to 5 or whatever it is, like Monday's always coming, then Tuesday, then Wednesday. And like life can just be this constant rotation. Sometimes it's a grind. And we get so in the weeds that it requires somebody just pulling us out and asking some of those fundamental questions or high-level questions, like questions that give us real clarity about things, that help us simplify things where we don't have to overcomplicate it. And I think for leaders going through LINC, it is so helpful to get real clarity around who's the one person that you're going to serve through your organization. Now, if you're building a business, we have a leader that just went through. She wants to start a clothing line, and this clothing line is for women to communicate to them their beautiful identity in Christ and how clothing can reflect godlike identity. And it's a beautiful vision that she has. And somebody like that needs to know who's the primary person I'm looking to like
target audience.
Exactly, your target audience. Doesn't mean you're not going to sell your product to other people, or if you offer training or you're a nonprofit and you want to connect in a certain community, like getting real clear about who that one person is. What are the challenges that they face? What are the needs that they're looking to have answered? And when you can answer those questions, you get sharper on how to serve them best. Same thing is true of like, what's your message to them? What is it they need to hear from you that maybe they can only hear from you? And getting really clear about that. And we also go into, what's your mission? What's your methodology? How do you fundraise or generate revenue so that you can be sustainable? All those kinds of things. And we tackled those things in about 7 weeks. It's called our Mission Accelerator. And that gets them an opportunity to wrestle with, like, if an executive director of an organization has 5 most core questions they need to answer, we help you start to have answers to those 5 core questions. And then after that, they're able to go through what's called Mission Builder. We just kicked that off about a week and a half ago with 10 of our leaders. And now they get coaching with strategic guides and spiritual guides for 8 months, walking alongside of them as they start to implement this plan that they started to build during that 7-week Mission Accelerator course.
What I think is awesome about what LINC is doing, and something you don't always hear with coaching somebody that's trying to be an entrepreneur, is that spiritual side. As you said, they have that person that checks in with them like once a month to just listen and pray with them. And you don't get that if you're going through like a more secular organization.
That's so important. There's so many times where I thought the solution to the challenge I was facing was a strategic solution, but it was actually a spiritual solution. Like, I went into planning mode and I should have been going into praying mode. Do you know what I mean?
Makes sense.
Like, it is so helpful for me to remember we are not fighting a battle against flesh and blood.
Right.
Like, Satan hates this, and he's going to distract, cause you to doubt. He's going to throw things your way. It's going to be painful. And when that happens, like, have a community around you at your church, friends who are Christian, who are going to lean into that and pray over you, pray with you, provide that kind of spiritual covering, because this is that transformational work of the kingdom that Satan hates to see.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know about you guys, but like that's sort of something I'm like, I feel very blessed as a pastor going through seminary. A lot of my friends are pastors, like Dave, somebody I know I've gone to over the years and prayed with and different things like that. So I feel blessed that I know a lot of my close friends are going to guide me and lead me spiritually when I'm trying to ask for questions or help.
Yeah, it's such a powerful thing and a great point, foundational, like you say, but often overlooked even in the church. Because we get, as you said earlier, busy about the stuff, and
Just a distraction from the devil.
yeah, and you're so down in the weeds. I liked you said you need somebody to kind of pull you up out of it, and that's, I think we all need that.
I'm yet to meet a person or a leader who doesn't need somebody else speaking into their life. One of my coaches about a year or two ago said everybody needs a friend, a mentor, and a coach. Friend is somebody who's going to lean into the hard stuff with you, walks alongside you. A mentor is somebody who has done what you're doing and they're just a little bit farther down the road, that you can go to them and wrestle through the challenges that you're facing, what you're trying to do. And a coach is somebody who asks good questions, and they're the kind of person that pulls you out of the weeds and isn't trying to give you the answers.
Right.
I mean, we could dive into this, maybe on the next episode, but like the importance of having somebody just asking questions is so powerful. And it causes me to think, how many times am I showing up in a room and I'm leading with a question instead of walking into a room and leading with what I think are the answers? I need to be more curious and question first, just to ask, to honor the other person's story and to really gather enough of the perspective to know how to serve them best.
I think that's so akin to Jesus. He was always asking questions.
Yeah.
He obviously knew the answers to. Right. And so he puts it out there and lets the people grapple with it. And that's where discovery comes, and confidence, and just moving ahead. That helps out that whole process, and working things out, that you're internalizing a lot of the time. And I don't know about you guys, but the more I internalize, the more my mind spins. And then when I share it with people, it's like, oh, there it is.
Bingo.
Then it's like, okay, all that toil, meaningless, right?
And if we keep our ideas to ourselves, like, we're depriving other people of the spark of the conversation that could actually help them or could stir something in them. Or at the very least, if they don't even care about your idea or what you're talking about, if they see you acting courageously, it might spur them on to be courageous in whatever's on their heart.
Right. That, like, school's saying, like, there's no dumb questions. Like, I never like to raise my hand and ask a question in class because I'm like, I don't want to look like an idiot.
Me too. Yeah.
But I'm like, but the old adage is like, somebody else probably has that question, so you should ask it.
That's how I feel at conventions, like district conventions. I don't want to go to that mic.
I just want to go to the mic to create
I don't want to say who I am. I don't want to say where I'm from, and I don't want to say what's on my mind because I will be known then.
Let's be known in the right places.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right, for sure. And I think Donald, you have a great, if you don't mind sharing an idea generation, like I don't know how the conversation started with one of our new members. She's a teen, and maybe Pastor was sharing about our podcast, and she's such a breath of fresh air. She has this great insight, and I'll let you share the rest.
So we're a new member class. It's a husband, wife, and their daughter, and we're kind of talking about different things, youth ministry, and then we're talking about like social media, like, how could I use like TikTok to leverage like what we're doing. I was like, does that mean I actually got to get a TikTok account? Like, I don't have TikTok and I never wanted it, but it's same, like, I don't know, never wanted Twitter, got Twitter, same with Instagram. And it's always been like ministry, youth are like, you need it. And we're talking about the podcast, and she was like, almost, I forgot how it kind of came up organically, but that idea of like, hey, I'd come on your guys' podcast and talk about issues that teenagers are going through.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm down for that. And like, I was like, maybe one of your friends who I know that's a member of our church, maybe get you guys. And they're like, yeah, and now I just got to set up the time. And like, how does that look? Does it start off right now? I'm thinking as like a PD and P-Dubs unscripted, but then it'll spin off onto its own, but at least get it up going. And like, and she's like, yeah, you could always put little clips of that on TikTok, which would then draw people into listening to the full podcast if you get that. And she's like, people will be surprised about the serious conversations that I have with my friends. And, the goal, like now as I'm thinking about it, is like, yeah, it's great to have the two of them, but even if we could branch off and have other high schoolers join in on that conversation and have it be something outside of the PD and P-Dubs unscripted, but then that means I got to have another conversation. What's the name?
Yeah.
And what's that? Because that conversation took us a little bit. What's the name of our podcast? What are we going to do on that podcast?
We're scribbling on a napkin or a piece of paper, and somehow we came up with something that looks like our logo. And
then when it's somebody that's a lot more creative than us, shout out to Dana, who's been on our podcast. She then took our little scribbles and put it to what our podcast logo is now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But even like the name, it's like, what are we going to call this? What are we going to talk about? And so that's kind of now I'm going to start grappling through that. I got to follow up with them. It's just been a little bit busy, but like, how can we make this? Because I think that's because I mean, that was the whole reason for the podcast. And initially it was like, meet the people where they're at. Like, I know I listen to podcasts a lot. So I was like, this is another avenue to pour into people where listen to it on your drive home or whatever, getting ready. Cause that's usually what I find myself listening to most podcasts is driving, going on walks, or getting ready in the morning.
Talk about courageous leadership.
Right.
I mean, for this teenage leader to say, hey, I could do this.
Right.
Like, I really do believe that inside of every person, there is something like that, where there is something that says, I could do, and maybe you just don't think of yourself as an entrepreneur. Maybe you don't want to start a business or an organization. Cool. Doesn't ever have to become that. But if there could be a community that could encourage you and just ask questions as this idea is percolating in your mind of I think I could do XYZ, just like that young leader was saying, I think I could come and talk on a podcast.
And I think there's got to be a posture of like receptivity to ideas.
Huge.
And like an openness to not only listen. So like PD, you listen to what she said and you've got this spirit in you like, hey, we can make this work. So like you already have the knowledge of how the podcast runs. And so now you're connecting her thought, seemingly random, but I mean, no way in God's economy is this a random conversation.
And it just happened to be because, like the way we've been doing new member class for those that I know we do on Sunday mornings. P-Dubs does it one week, and then I do the Bible study, and then we flipped it the next week. So then I do new members, he does the Bible study, and it just happened to spin out from the conversation. And even that like willingness, because like, as a pastor, I'm willing to share preaching and in this podcast about different things, but to have a teenager being willing to share on something that can go out worldwide, like I know as a teenager, I wouldn't want people knowing or hearing me have those conversations.
Right.
I mean, that is the church's version of having an R&D department. This is research and development. We're going to try new things. We're going to listen. We're going to learn about other ways to serve our community, to speak to our community. And you look at any of the successful companies out there, they would be nowhere if they didn't do R&D, if they didn't put budget dollars towards R&D, if they weren't listening to the margins to hear ideas that maybe are a little bit different. Maybe it stretches us a little bit. Maybe it's a little uncomfortable, or maybe we look at it and we're like, that'll never work.
Yep.
I mean, do you remember when the whole idea of the iPhone with a camera? What do you need a camera in your phone for? That will never work. or when they were going to take away the buttons on smartphones, where people are just too addicted to the clicking feel of the whole keyboard.
I'm good.
Like, I don't see anybody with a BlackBerry these days.
Nope. No.
Sorry, shout out to BlackBerry, but I mean, it's just there's R&D, and you're willing to test things. And the other side of that then is R&D doesn't mean everything wins, everything is a breakthrough, everything works. But when we test new things, we're listening for what we need to learn from the process, and you're harvesting that. You're taking that and you're making it matter for others and for the next iteration of it.
And I think those of us who, there's an institutional side to churches, right? Like you got to make the sausage, right? But I love your R&D analogy. It's like now we're pushing the walls out a little bit on this corner to inject some different kind of thought or trajectory. And so like when an R&D idea takes legs, those in the institutional mindset have to be willing to say, all right, there's a reason why this has gained some traction. Let's give it a go.
Yep.
And support it without feeling threatened to the institution.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah.
But I love getting to work alongside churches. And when we get clarity on vision or mission, especially mission, a lot of times the way church approaches their mission statement. Is they'll write a statement, and it's written usually in a way that communicates to the congregation that it's a good thing we hired our pastors to do that for us. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Does our new mission fit that? I want because we just spent 4 hours last week talking about our mission and vision.
Yeah,
and
we're working on this stuff. So
hey, so you're right in the middle of it.
yeah, we are.
It's so important. Like the mission is for the church, it's for all of us, and the more we can help be clear about, if the mission is what we do. This is what we do every day or every week or every month, every year. We're about this work. Getting clear about that in a way that every person who's a part of our church can say, man, I'm so glad I get to be a part of helping with that. And out of that is going to create a culture that says this church isn't threatened by your ideas.
Yeah.
And we want your ideas because God's working through us together. That's a powerful, powerful thing.
Yeah. Well, empowerment is a word that comes to mind. You're empowering someone to come with an idea, and maybe they've got part of it developed, but you're creating an environment that is asking for that. And maybe the challenge then is like with the new idea and the institutional side. Okay, how could we work together to like, okay, we're still accomplishing what we always have. It just looks a little different on this end. It's not like we've abandoned like
Still
what has been brought.
Right, still the same mission, just different ways of coming back. Because I mean, that's what a lot of our talks have been about. Is like, is this what everything we do? We have to run it through this. Is this fit into our mission?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I think that I remember. I was planting a church, somebody would come to me with an idea, and part of me was really excited. And then as a pastor, part of me was very nervous because I felt like I didn't have enough time and bandwidth to dedicate to their idea. And somewhere in there, I was believing the myth that I had to control something or I had to be the leader of it. And now I've just been challenged in that so much that I can't be everywhere.
Right.
And
that's a reality.
What a silly thing for me to ever believe that lie in the first place. But that God's people can be everywhere. And as the body of Christ, we can be in so many different places at the same time. And that's where that kind of problem of like somebody comes with an idea, and as a church leader, you're thinking, who has time to lead that? Who can give the energy to that? Where's the funding for that going to come from? Those are healthy problems. And what that promotes is more kingdom collaboration, because maybe where a local church doesn't have the funding or the time or the energy or the building space or whatever it may be to help pull off that idea, there are collaborating organizations, maybe like LINC, that can come alongside of and help pour energy into those leaders, and therefore their ministry or whatever they're doing can actually add momentum to the church. And we could collaborate on that stuff.
Yeah. Because for every idea, if you squash all ideas, then maybe you're squashing someone who's looking for a way to fund an idea. Like, hey, that really sounds interesting to me. I could come and partner alongside with you. Or time. I have some talents in this. I'd like to. And so all the more to have an entrepreneurial spirit of like non-for-profits in our communities, idea generation in our churches, because I seem to, if I'm hearing you right, it all kind of blends together. Like if the church community gets out into our community that we live into, now we're changing and transforming lives, and we're collaborating, and God is providing those opportunities for people to jump in, whatever that it is, to support the idea to go forward.
And the thing that helps me get really clear on what's the real problem here is it that we don't have enough time, energy, space, whatever it is, to contribute to that idea. That's actually not the main problem. The main problem is there are 11 million people in the Chicagoland area.
Right. Yeah.
And we want every one of them to experience the love that is like no other. Mm-hmm. And that's the unconditional love of Christ, paid for on the cross and given to us victoriously through his resurrection. Like, that's powerful.
Well said. And like, I'm going to be the Newman of the podcast now and be what nobody likes, but we're getting close to the time where you probably need to get going.
Yeah.
Hello, Newman.
So
Jerry.
Yeah, because it's 3:36 right now, and I know you got to go pretty soon to pick up your kids. So any closing thoughts of like how people, I know you sent me the QR code, which I'll put up, but any other ways you want people to know to find out more about LINC?
Yeah, I would just say to anyone who's listening to this, if you've ever had just an inkling of an idea, just like, wouldn't it be cool if somebody did this? Or wouldn't it be awesome if there was an organization that could support this group? Or if there was a way to make an impact in that neighborhood, or you're somebody who has a heart to partner alongside of people who have ideas for the sake of the kingdom, we would love to connect with you at LINC. You can scan the QR code that PD is putting up. That will give you an opportunity to just put your name and email address in, and that will start sending you our LINC Chicago newsletter. You can also learn more about what LINC is doing on our website. That's LINC, L-I-N-C, which stands for Leaders in Every Community, linc.org. And there you'll see the stories of what's happening in other cities around the country.
And I can put that too on the video. And I can put it in the description. And are you guys on Facebook?
Yes.
So I can tag that too when I post about this hey, check out our new podcast about LINC Chicago, and tag your guys' Facebook page.
Absolutely. And I think to both leaders, business leaders, nonprofit leaders, churches who want to collaborate, because we see that the challenge is great around Chicagoland, let's have a conversation. Mm-hmm. Like let's lean into that together and just ask questions together. Let's listen to one another and just imagine what God could do through all of us partnering, collaborating for the sake of the gospel around the city.
Thank you so much, Dave, for coming in today. It's great to have you, and I'm sure you'll be a guest again on PD and P-Dubs Unscripted.
Let's do it. Thanks for having me, you guys.
You got it, man.